No, he's not. He's a legitimate human being.
Welcome, ladies and talk.
Ladies and talk.
No, you can't even cut that out now. Now you got to keep it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies, is what Paul was trying to say.
Yes, 100% what I was trying to say. Welcome to the Midwest, the 816, where we are deprived our naturalness.
What?
Oh, fuck, man. Fuck.
I just like how you said welcome to the Midwest. Like, people who
Yeah.
are watching this are all of a sudden just transported to Kansas. Like, oh, man.
There's a Tech 9 song, actually.
I did not want to.
It's Welcome to the
I
Midwest.
did not
which is
subscribe
dope
for
as fuck.
this.
Interesting times we live in, I think. And I don't know if we've really talked about the time we live in. I think we have. Well,
I think that's all we do, Paul.
No, I know that. But I'm saying, like, how interesting the time that we live in is, how interesting it is. Do we really shed light on...
I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Isn't it? It's very crazy. Very weird.
We're all just used to it.
Do you know... I don't know if I told you either of you my theory. My newest theory. Something I created on my own. No one... Maybe someone else...
Chrysler?
Maybe... Yeah. Definitely not what Jesse said. But I have this theory that... Obviously, there have been civilizations that have lived on this earth for a very long time. We know that the pyramids, blah, blah, blah. The pyramids in Mexico... the Mayans... And it just goes further back. You know, Graham Hancock, finding out that there used to be a civilization in the Amazon that was wiped out by some sort of plague or whatever. But I have this theory that, and Johnny, you and I talked to Brian Forster just about ancient technology and stuff like that, and I found it pretty interesting. And I know that they're able to do some sort of research, and they think it was a solar wave that wiped out that civilization 12,000 years ago. Some sort of solar wave from the sun that just wiped out that civilization. But this is my theory, man, and I don't have anything to back it up. This is just what I think, is that they were so close to finding out who God was, whatever that is, whatever God is, or whatever it may be. They were close to getting answers to what it was, and that's what wiped out the civilization.
That is absolutely absurd. No, I'm just kidding. That's... crazy theory.
It might be, yeah. I think it's just I don't.
So a solar wave happened. So you're talking about a high intensity radiation came through and wiped out a civilization.
Based upon the findings that they have researched and people that he knows, yes, correct.
Like vitrification in the soil and all that. Like things are becoming glass. This high intensity radiation. All this was happening around this area.
Yeah, wherever they go, they seem to find the same trends around the same time, same time frame. Carbon dating, all that stuff, the stuff you just described. But maybe that'd be God's way of wiping people out is using the sun.
Why would God want to do that if God's in control of everything and He created everything, though?
Maybe God wants to see everything unfold as opposed to. I mean, I think that each civilization gets a chance, and maybe God doesn't want people to find out what God is. I don't know.
You're saying, like, why would he reset? Like, why would he hit the reset button, though?
Oh,
No, I'm
you're
saying
asking
that's what,
me?
yeah, that's
Like,
what
why
you're saying is why would he hit the
why would he
reset
hit the-
button?
like, why would you, like, if you punishment, oh, you almost fucking figured my ass out, I gotta kill you. Like, that doesn't sound very
I mean,
godlike almost,
you're
in my opinion.
back in your day when you were playing the old SNES and you were playing Mario, you were basically God to Mario, controlling everything that went on. If Mario inside the TV started freaking out and coming out of the TV and going to kill
Mario's not a sentient being that has, like, family and friends and emotions and has to experience
maybe
pain,
we're
though.
not compared to God.
It's very true.
That'd be a weird...
Maybe compared to God,
I've
we're
heard a
like
lot of things
ants,
to be like
in an ant colony.
No, so ants make sense because ants still are live thinking.
I get what you're saying,
beings
like sentient
that are
beings.
doing work, but
Well, they're right now with the way technology is getting, they're called EMs, is what they're called. There's been a few TED Talks of these, really powerful people called EMs, and basically they're talking about how right now virtual reality and with AI and how basically eventually when AI is established, they're going to create 200 AI individuals in this virtual reality, basically, and they're going to be 200. They're mocking 200 of the most powerful people, the richest people, the smartest people. Those are what those 200 AIs are going to be. And they're saying that this guy had a TED Talk about it. He seemed very nervous during the TED Talk, too. He's just basically saying that for 1 year, that they're on this earth, it's going to be like 1,000 years for us. That's how fast that they're going to progress, because they'll be able to either speed up or slow down how much information they intake.
I still think as soon as we create AI, like true AI, we're all dead.
Well, in that talk, he says that he doesn't think that they will kill us. He thinks basically they're going to allow us to retire and just retire from Earth. We won't have to work anymore. They're going to, that's just what he said. That's what he believes, and obviously he's not going to talk to a crowd and say, yeah, they're going to kill you all. He thinks that they are going to allow humans to be here. We're the ones who created them. They're going to allow us to be here. They're going to allow us just to relax and just basically chill.
It's one theory with that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a good example of stuff that's been created in the past that, like, does stuff usually kill its creator kind of situation. But I can't think of a lot of examples right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Typically, throughout nature, you see more of a nurturing aspect from the creator to...
From the creator. I'm talking about the other side of things. What you've created, the product.
Well, yeah, and they're saying basically they'd be able to copy your brain, or my brain, or these 200 people that they're copying, and they're going to be that person. They can make copies of that person. They can be that person a million different times and do whatever they want. I don't know where I'm going with that.
See, I don't think that's artificial intelligence then. That's like a transfer of consciousness at that point.
True.
Which is not artificial intelligence, is created intelligence. That's not created intelligence, that's copied intelligence.
Right, and maybe, and that's, whenever I was listening to the TED Talk, I was thinking, well, these people, obviously, it's like the show on Netflix, I forget what it's called, where they just want to live forever, basically, is what it comes down to.
I have no idea. I don't know what the show is.
Who the fuck would want to ever live forever?
Right, but in saying that, it makes complete sense, is that's exactly what it is. But eventually AI is going to come in fruition. It's going to happen.
Unless you're talking about, like, altered carbon.
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Oh. You're talking about, like, they call them meths after, like, Methuselah.
Right.
Having to deal with, not so much that they want to live forever, but they want to, like, I'm sure the main guy from that fucking show is like 400 years old.
Right.
And he's still kicking and still enjoying it and whatnot. He's going through a lot of problems, but still enjoying life. But I'm sure that you never know. Maybe when he gets to be 1,200 years old, he's like, okay, I'm finally done with this and I'm ready to, die.
Right.
Not necessarily that they want to live forever, but I see where you're going with that.
Right. But I think with that TED Talk, with what you were saying, that's probably more likely of what it's
closer to something like that.
Exactly.
Yes, when you copy someone's, like, if we actually found out a way to take, like, you fucking stick something on the side of Jesse's temple, copies, they've done this in Black Mirror, actually, great show, copy everything that's him, and then put it onto the side of a robot, give that robot skin and whatnot, make it be Jesse.
Would you be satisfied, because you wouldn't be that person? I mean, yes, it's you, but that's not your consciousness.
That depends on your view of what consciousness and what the soul is.
It's very true, but if I were to make a replica of myself via that sort of technology, I wouldn't be that person. Maybe they do the same exact things and think the same way.
You don't know
that
what makes you this person right now.
I just don't think you'd be able to tap into two different consciousnesses.
That's my point, though. Is how do you, like, what makes you you? That's been a question for a long time. Do you have a soul? What is consciousness? Does it come from the heart, or is it just a chemical that's in the brain? When a neuron triggers, blah, blah, because if it's just something in the brain, when a neuron triggers and there's nothing else there affecting it, and you're able to copy someone's brain schematic to something else, then they are you. If that's all that makes up you.
True, but I don't think you'd be able to tap into that are you.
I actually agree with you. I don't think that's the case either. I don't think it's the same. I'm just saying it just depends on what your view of consciousness is.
Right, because they could be in a completely different body, but it's your mind and how you think and all that jazz. But it's still, you're not thinking for that individual. I think at that point, once they're created, they're going to have your mindset, but yet they're going to do their own thing afterwards.
You're saying if you're still, like, alive too.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I'm saying, what I was saying is if they copy you, and when they pull this off of you, you're dead. It's not a copy. That's actually you. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, like, they do this, they pull it off.
I get that, yeah.
You die, and they transfer you over to a different body. Is it still...
I think so at that point, yeah. If they're able to do that, for sure, 100%.
Well, then in essence, then, as soon as you make a copy, it's the same thing. If you pull this off, you don't die, you continue, but everything from the moment before they pulled it off is copied over, then that's just another you. You're now two individual... That was everything that you were up until that exact point, is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's no longer you because you're you, but you're not it either. You're not the same as anything that it's going through, even though you've been through all the same stuff up until that point. You're now two different entities.
Once it's established.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some deep shit right there.
It's too deep, man. I can't handle all that.
I can't either.
No, it's like almost like a God sequence at that point, because what God is all knowing, if anything, and definable is a being or entity that's all knowing, that everything came from, and at first is all knowing.
Powerful.
I know, but at first it's all knowing. Before you're all powerful and before you're all everything else, you have to be all knowing first. I think we realize that very much, just structurally how things work. You have to know before you do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, and I could be completely wrong just because I'm coming from an aspect of a human being. But before anything else, you have to know. So an all-knowing being, and to now go through a God sequence of you get to live forever now, well, you would completely change and not do the same things that you would do like 100 years ago that you would do today. And you would be completely fucking different and have different morality and different everything because change is inevitable. Like, I don't know where I'm going to fucking go with that, but...
What has changed when you live forever, though? You can only go... I mean, everything would be different.
No, absolutely. No, eventually you get to a point is whenever you go through this process to where eventually you want, you want something else and something new to challenge you.
I was going to say, we've had this conversation before. You could actually potentially live for a long time. Like, you could change your lifespan to like 3,000 years. You could still face challenges at year 2,900. You know what I mean? But if you're all-knowing and all-powerful, then there are no challenges, which means you would not want to be all-knowing and all-powerful, I feel like.
And who knows how long it would take to even be to be all-knowing and all-powerful. It would take, who knows, it could be 100 years, 200, 400,000,
Well, I don't think you'd ever reach that point as like an AI or something like that. But I'm saying as far as God goes, like the whole God complex thing, talking about what God is and being omniscient and omnipotent and all that different stuff, like, I feel like if a person were to achieve that through whatever means, whether it's through instant gratification or through like over time, like you're saying, however long it takes, I feel like the moment you reach that is the moment you realize you don't want that.
So do you think that within the time frame that we have, so the first 20 years of your life, you go through the baby stage, the kid stage, and then you go through your teenage years, and you really don't become an adult, in my opinion, until your mid-20s. I mean, you're 18 to 25 is a very experimental time of your life, but I think mentally, whenever you start understanding what life truly is, and it could be different for everyone, this is just my take on it, is right around that 25 to 30-year-old mark. But then you only have from 30 to maybe 70 years old. So you have a 40-year span. And there are some 70-year-olds out there that are still really clean-minded, clear-minded. They changed the oil in their
My grandpa's 88, and he's doing good. Other than his hearing, he's solid. All there in the mind,
Yeah, and he's probably one of 5% of the population that are able to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe the average is like 40 years to sit here and live on this earth to try and understand what it is we're here for. And maybe we're not meant to do that or know that. Especially having children now, I take pride in.
What's your best guess? If you had a best guess on why you're here, because you're getting into some really deep shit right now. What's the best guess that you have right now on why you're here?
I'm not trying to go deep. I'm just saying to understand the life that we live, I don't think 40 years is enough. And for some people, 50 or 60 years. In the grand scheme of things and how old this universe is and how old this earth is, 4 billion years old, allegedly, you're talking, we get 40 to 50 years to try and figure out some shit.
But see, that's the difference, though, is you've mentioned this before in the past. You talk about, like, what's the point of life and trying to figure out some shit. Even right now, you're saying, you just said that you get 40 to 60 years to figure out, like, what life is and to figure out some shit. So that's your goal right there, is to figure everything out. I don't have that goal. I ain't worried about figuring out what life is and what brought us here and so on and so forth.
Everyone's goal whenever they're born is to try to figure that shit out, right? Okay. Isn't that every human being that's ever lived?
I mean, I could die without knowing where we came from and what humans' purpose is and be perfectly fine.
For sure, and I'm right there with you. I'm just saying, to be alive for that, I mean, and this is probably the average for a lot of the human beings that have ever existed on this earth, unless the Bible was in some way, shape, or form correct, or back in the day they lived for longer periods of times. But I'm just saying, I don't necessarily find it fair if there weren't to be anything after life or after death to only have 40 to 60 years on this earth and not know very much of anything.
That's not fair.
I don't think it's fair.
But you don't know the comparison between that and what was the other option. So you had non-existence and you were given existence. We can't define what existence is because everybody has different opinions on like what God is. Everybody has different opinions on what God is. We all know we have existence. We don't know what happened prior to that. How do you not know that this is the best time ever to be doing what you're doing? And you were here for a purpose, and this has meaning. And this is very much a part of how the universe is interconnected with where you are right now doing exactly what you're doing, kind of thing. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I'm I'm completely okay with that. I'm completely okay with what the position I'm in right now.
Maybe I misspoke. Whenever you talked, you're worried about like the prior, and what is the comparison to my existence right now? How do you not know if shit wasn't way better for you in a previous life that you didn't know about, and you were living in a whole nother dimension? We can't even describe the shit that was happening because it's like a whole nother fucking dimension. You can't describe it.
I kind of lost you there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No.
I
So
lost you.
I'm like you're saying how do we not know things weren't better before this?
We don't, I guess.
Yeah, I mean
But like what you were. Okay. I'm sorry.
No,
Maybe I misunderstood you.
well, like I said, I mean, man, like I said, for the grand scheme of things, 60 years max isn't really enough to understand much of what's going on in this world, other than the fact of learning how to love someone and learning how to grow with someone or be old with someone or have kids and have friends. And like I get that like that's a big part of what it is to be a human being, is having friends like you guys coming over here every week, and we're having these great discussions. Nothing better than having the the 3 girls that live upstairs in my life. Like I love that. Like that all makes sense. But I'm saying the bigger picture.
Okay, but see, the problem with that is like everything you just talked about for humanity, like your girls and friends and everything like that's all super important, right? And it means something to you. You talk about you want to know a little more. You want to talk about the bigger picture, and you're like 60 years isn't long enough. Maybe 1,000 years would be better. Yeah, but when you talk about the grand scheme of a universe that's infinite, 1 million years is nothing. It's no different than 60 years. Honestly, when you look at it you're talking about the grander scale of things. If you look at a number line that goes to infinity, 60 years and 1 million years can be, that compared to that.
But I think what goes back to what my theory is the fact that maybe these ancient people or the people that lived in the past, maybe they were able to figure something else out, and they were able to learn more at a more rapid rate, and they understood life more for what it was.
Why do you feel that way, though, that they did?
I don't know. Because I don't think material. I mean, if we were, let's say, if we were to go to extinct right now, the civilization that we live in right now were to go extinct, and 12,000 years goes by, what monuments would be left behind?
Does it matter?
I'm just curious, and we probably none of us know the answer to that, but it most likely would be nothing. I don't know if any of the tallest buildings in the world would still be around in 12,000 years. What I'm saying is these ancients built something so powerful that lasted so long that I think personally that they were more intellectually involved with each other as a civilization than we are. I think we're more geared towards ourselves.
Well, I think they
Absolutely. Oh, okay. I understand where you're coming at now. That the fact that we're so separated.
Yeah.
And that things are so separate between these different classes of people. It's almost no longer a race thing. Now it's a financial thing, given the state that we're in. I can understand what you're saying. Like, somebody were to come in, and every human being dies, right? They'd go and they'd see, like, tall buildings, great technology, and then they'd go across the sea and see the same land, same fucking people of the same, like, skeletal structure. They'd be like, man, they had ancestors over there. Why are they living in such squalor within this portion that apparently had to work and everything when everything was literally right in front of them to do all this? Is that kind of what you were getting at?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing is we're not any more separated than they were back then. You have the same thing back then. Yeah, you got pyramids in Egypt, you got Mayan pyramids and all this. You're talking about, 400 people or 4,000 people working together on something as to where we have, millions in the United States, which is, and then you talk about, like you said, oh, over here you've got these buildings, blah, 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 blah. But then on the other side of the world, you've got, it's just like run down and blah, blah, blah. Why were they not helping out their ancestors? Why were they not helping each other out? You had that even in the past. You had Egyptians with pyramids, and then you go over to, like, I don't know, Scandinavia, and they've got huts. Like, there was no connection then either. In fact, if anything, I believe the exact opposite. I don't think we're more divided now. I think we're more together. Back then, they were truly divided. You couldn't send an email from Egypt to communicate with someone in ancient Mayan in Brazil because they didn't even know that each other existed. That's how separate they were.
Okay, you're talking about a physical separation. I'm talking about an economic and
They were separated economically too.
Well,
no, okay, yes,
Because they had different economies.
there has never been a more economic separation of people that spoke the same language ever. The fact that you have in 2009 that minimum wage has been where it's at, and then in 2019, minimum wage, same thing where it's at. But now housing costs has fucking gone up.
Yeah, no,
It is
I
a
mean,
separation.
we agree on all that.
You've seen this, and that is just one, like, drop in the fucking bucket compared to difference between people of financial fucking difference.
I know that.
It's no longer a race thing. It is a financial government thing, which we should have more.
And that comes with modern
about to
day
say-
and us being connected more, though.
I don't know.
I'm
if
not
I-
agreeing with any of it. Trust me. I'm just saying. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying that I don't think it has to
is no
deal
longer
with.
a cultural thing because everybody's so accepting of other people's cultures,
Yeah.
right? Our big thing is we're very libertarian to other people's cultures. We're like, if you're not hurting us and we're not hurting you, then everything's fine. Yeah, you serve noodles over there. Well, we like fried chicken over here. We can both get along as long as we have the same economic values, right? But the separation of class happens within an economic fucking level at this point. If you really break it down to nuts and bolts. Now the separation is the very fucking wealthy that are able to do so much, and you have the super poor that are literally fueling the country.
I mean,
get
I agree
barely
with you
anything.
100% on everything you're saying. I just didn't think it had.
And I may went too far off on that. I don't fucking know.
I think that you were just saying we're more separated now, which I disagree.
And I think we are. I think we are more separated
don't
than
think
ever,
we're more-
definitely
ever,
are. We definitely
ever,
are.
in, ever in human history.
We're literally not more
You're-
separated.
You're looking at the fact that we're connected, like, by social media and
I'm
and,
not looking-
and all that. No, that's
You
your
wanna-
general
I'm ta-
landscape of the way that you're thinking.
I'm talking.
Right now.
No, you're right. We're separated on a class level more, for sure. But in general, as far as you want to talk about humans being separated, you're talking about humans living on the planet that did not know that other humans were living on the same planet. That's how separated
Well, hold on.
they were.
Before you,
we are not that separated.
before you go
we're
in,
separated by class and distinction.
I think-
and all this different. Like, yeah, there's a huge
I think
difference
you
in
would
wage
actually
gap.
find more formality and more understanding of what a human being is between those two cultures if they were to be able to fucking
They would
meet.
never meet though. That's how separated they
But
were.
what
That's
I'm
what I'm
saying is this is the fucking difference.
What up, baby boo?
no, you're good. I'm more
Hop
towards.
on in.
I'm more towards the Blake Botwinick in the house, man.
I was trying to text Justin to get a special guest announcement.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
Blake Bobinick's here.
Paul Weiss would be my best man at my wedding. Got a nice little ring box with a post-it note. Says best man, question mark.
Oh shit. Am I? What am I? I can't do
You just say yes, bro.
Of course, bro. Of
Consent-
course. Of course.
consent is
Yes.
key.
Yes. 100%, man.
Let's drink some beer, and you guys can keep talking.
Yeah, congrats. Applause, all that jazz.
You guys just witnessed some OG fucking brotherly love.
Paul's
being
gonna be
felt
Blake's
right now.
best man.
It's a big thing.
Give me a special announcement.
Did you know about this?
Yeah, we both knew. We both knew.
Oh,
we didn't
shit.
know when it was gonna happen. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carrie Ann told us both. You don't have to hand me two. Oh, one is supposed to go to him. I was like, man, I don't need two beers. Like, shit. I don't know how we get in a new mic. Do you just want to, like, share a mic? We've polished this thing off?
I can just be loud from over here.
No, we're good.
Yeah, it's not out.
What are you guys talking about?
Fuck, man.
Fuck, I don't know, man.
That's a fuck. You don't want. Yeah.
Nice, dude.
I was worried about the segue between you coming in here and asking Paul to be your best man. Yeah. So that's exciting, man. This is like being now, like literally, this is live as fuck right
It's
now.
hella live, man.
It's on camera.
Hey, world.
I think that was the whole point.
Yeah.
All of it. It needs to be on camera. It needs to be posted.
Nice, dude.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
some dope shit, man.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Thank you.
What are we talking about tonight, guys?
Oh God.
We're talking about.
I don't know. We were talking about some shit
fuck,
that's
man, I don't
nowhere
even-
near as
I don't even
relevant
know. I don't
as
even know.
Paul
This-
being your best man. You
yeah.
know.
It had a little bit to do with that. At some point in that conversation, it had some shit to do with that. I think that they were more interconnected, though, Johnny. I really do. You see a lot of the same pyramids being like built up and shit like that right around the same time. So I think that there was some form of communication.
I get that, and they might be, but
There's no evidence. I feel it.
what?
Just Jews.
That's all that
Jews.
he's like talking, and all they hear Jews. All right. All right.
Where's this fake kid?
I did like fucking 2 shots, man. I'm trying to stay awake right now. I took an edible
feel that.
like literally midway through the fucking Patriots Houston game, and I had to do this podcast. I'm like, man, let's get into some spiritual shit. Like, let's fucking get it done. But
That's what we were kind of doing.
that's what we're getting done. Yeah, man.
Back at it.
Back at it.
Jesse is about to fucking pass out, it looks like. You good, man?
I'm solid, man.
This is on the downward,
I'm
downward
good.
spiral.
I'm good.
I truly think, I truly do think that in ancient civilizations, that they were able to connect on
Oh
another.
God, I didn't want to get back into all that.
in another outlet. I'm serious. I truly do think that, and I know you don't, Johnny, and I don't think that you don't think that they were interconnected like we are today. But we truly are interconnected in a way that no one can ever believe. But is that so? I think truly back then, 12,000 years ago, in the ancient pyramid times, that they did have that ability. There's no way to prove it. But if we were to die off and 12,000 years later, would they be able to prove that we had that ability?
To what? Interconnect, like through the internet and stuff?
You say that we are in a time where we can connect the most.
Yeah.
How do you know that they didn't have that ability?
I don't. You're right. I can assume, though, based on some science, I can assume that they did not have that
But
ability.
someone sitting in a room
I could be
12,000
wrong.
years
Aliens
from now,
could show up and so on and so
You're
forth. but-
speculatory fucking views are.
I just can't take that.
Phenomenal.
I just can't take that as. I mean, there's just no way to tell.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll go back to the same. We've had this argument before, not about this specific thing, but as soon as you say, "Oh, there's no way to tell," or you can't base it off the stuff that we know right now. As soon as you do that and throw some science out the door, you can literally use the same argument for anything and say, "There's no way to know if you're breathing in oxygen.
No,
There's no way to know."
I agree with that. But for something as simple as the fact that when you're talking about technology and how we connect with each other, I don't think that you're throwing science out the window. Science has no idea what happened. It's just all
Could be. Yeah.
It's just all speculative at that point. I mean, for them, they're just measuring. What
Okay,
they
so let me ask you this then: if let's say they had a way to communicate, let's say that they did, they had something similar to that, and they could communicate across large distances from the pyramids at Giza all the way over to the Mayan temples and so on and so forth. The fuck does that have to do with anything? Like, how does that affect us in any way, shape, or form today in the life that you live?
for this conversation that we're having right now, and you saying that right now we are able to connect in a way that we never had before.
Okay. Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And I think that back then in those times that there was a way that people could connect, and maybe it was in a different way.
And maybe there would, and I would hope they would have a way to connect, because that sounds like a very isolated and like shitty way to go about things. Is having little tribes of, not only little tribes of like 400 to 4,000 people, but little tribes that don't even know that the other tribes exist.
Right. And who knows if that's the case?
They're in their own little. I mean, think about it. Like, they're stuck in their own little world where they've never crossed the ocean. They don't know what's going on. At least we know what's going on to a degree. And then vice versa. You could literally, aliens could be looking at us laughing right now like, yo, they're stuck on Earth. Like, they think that Earth is all there is when there's all these other places they could visit. Like, Earth could be the equivalent of Missouri. Like, if you were stuck in Missouri your entire life and you never got to, Like, we went to Colorado and Utah and all this other stuff. You never got to go look anything. You don't get to go to Spain. You don't get to do all these other things. That could be the exact equivalent of just being on Earth right now. It's all, like you said in the beginning of this, the grander scheme of things. It just depends what perception you take and how you look at it. Also, Jesse's dying over here. I think Savannah's about to show up to give us a ride. I feel like we need a...
Jesse, give us one last hope of inspiration.
What's up, Savannah?
What do you have in this life?
All right.
I already had a conversation with her about my phone. My phone's being shitty right now. I'm going to end it with this. You only have yourself. It's the only thing you ever have in the end. This is true to everything. You have yourself, so how would you want to be treated? Basically, whenever it comes down to it, that's how you live your life. If you only have yourself, it's the only thing that fucking matters is yourself and the selfish fucking existential fucking thing that we live in. How would you want to be treated? Treat other people like that with that mentality. I don't know where the fuck to go from that.
All right.
But
Well said.
I'll
I
catch
feel
you
like
guys later, man.
I'm just going to fill them in real quick before you do your outro, Paul. We had to cut it off a little early because, as you guys saw earlier, there's probably going to be
It's a
cuts and
weird
pieces and
podcast.
stuff.
It's
Very
gonna be
weird.
weird.
Blake showed up, real good friend of all of us, real good friend with Paul, and Paul's now going to be his best man at his wedding. So we had to, hang out for a little while and talk and stuff. So that's why the podcast's a little weird tonight.
Yeah, just a tad
Yeah,
bit.
there we go.
And I'm going to talk to myself for a little bit, for 20 minutes. It's going to be the first podcast I ever do this. So I'm going to end the podcast at an hour, man. I'm going to talk for 23
Paul's going
minutes.
all the way then.
I'm going all the way. I don't end, man. I can't do it. But you guys have a good night. You guys have a good night.
God damn it, I want that fucking outro. I've never done that before. This is weird, man. It's a weird podcast.
Doesn't have to be. But yeah, you have a good night, man.
Later, Paul.
See you guys.
Love you, bro.
Love you too.
Stay fly and ring the bell. That's all I wanted to fucking say.
That's all he wanted to say. And this is going to be the first time I ever do this, but I'm going to do it. And I want to, for some reason or another. But in talking about what we're talking about in ancient times, the fact that, and I'm going to go back a little bit to what Johnny says, and I know I've talked about this just recently, and the fact that we really don't know, and alls we have is scientists speculating on what happened 20,000 years ago. But what really happened 20,000 years ago? And I'm not saying that I know what happened 20,000 years ago. I'm not saying that in the slightest. I'm not saying that I know exactly what had happened. But nor am I going to think in my mind that, yes, hey, 20,000 years ago, there were some ancient people. They had slaves. And which, by the way, we had a podcast with Brian Forster, who has dedicated his life to what he's doing to say that there were actually no slaves that actually existed back in those times. So in that instance, to know that someone who has dedicated their lives, to that specific area to say that there were no slaves, and that's what we were told when we were growing up and when we were in school, and we were learning about these things, and they tell us, yeah, there were these slaves and they built the pyramids. Well, you know what? Actually, I'm 30 years old now, and I've actually had a podcast with a guy who has done extensive research, who has actually went to these areas and who's actually studied in these absolute areas. That's not the case. Then what does that bring? What does that lead me to believe? Am I to believe what I was told, or am I to believe what my imagination has to say? And part of what I believe, yes, Brian, I do believe what your work, the work that you're doing is very nice. It's very good, and I appreciate the work that you do, and it's doing its due diligence into the community of the media, the backwards media. But what I'm trying to say is even Brian, and I know I'm going down a loophole, and Johnny would definitely call me out on this, is the research that Brian and people like that are doing, and Graham Hancock and others, the research that they're doing, it doesn't necessarily, it's all speculative. I'm not out in the field. I'm not doing what they're doing. I don't see that there used to be a population in the Amazons that there used to be 3 million people that used to live in the Amazons. I'm not doing that type of research. But my mind, something in my heart tells me that back 12,000 years ago, and it may be even longer than that, that there was something else, man. I think that we are misled to believe that 12,000 years ago, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. When in fact, it was very similar to the times that we live in. Similar in a different way, because they chose to build differently. And they were interconnected in ways that we couldn't imagine. I think that, I truly believe and think that they were way more advanced than we are today. And it's the same species. It's the same human beings that your best friends, your wife, your kids, it's the same people. It's the same people. But they were brought up a different way. And they led a life a different way. In a way that we could never imagine. And I'm going back to the theory that I brought up in the beginning of this podcast. Is that they were close to reaching what we believe is God. And what we believe is God is the creator. And they were close to finding out who that creator was. And you have Zecharia Sitchin. You have these people who think that they see the writings and they can understand the writings and they know what the writings are and they can decipher what this ancient language was. That's a 50-50 shot for Zecharia Sitchin to come out and say, yeah, I know exactly what these people are saying. And people call him ludicrous for what he says with the Anunnaki and the ninth planet and or Planet X and so forth. So people will probably call me ludicrous for saying what I'm saying because mainstream science doesn't really coincide with that. But you know what? I really don't coincide with mainstream science because mainstream science has been funded millions and millions and millions upon millions of dollars. Millions. I've been funded with $0. I've been funded with just the existence of myself on this earth. The existence of myself on this earth. And just having the power of thought as opposed to going out in the field of study and going out and seeing that there is some sort of corrosion or there's some sort of evidence that there is a solar wave. Could that not be manipulated? Could scientists looking at erosion everywhere in the earth and it all correlates to say that there was some sort of solar wave 12,000 years ago that wiped out civilization? How accurate is that? How accurate could that truly be? Do we really know? Do we really have the technology to scan said rock formations, to look at it and say that was a solar wave? How do they know what a solar wave is? They see it and then they can observe it and say that the erosion on that rock is due to a solar wave. Yeah, we had a massive solar wave this week. We're gonna go test the rock and see what it looks like. But now somehow they're able to tell what a solar wave did 12,000 years ago. I don't believe that is the case. I truly don't. I don't think that we have the technology to look back into time 12,000 years ago. I think the only form of understanding of ancient technologies is strictly writing. And unfortunately, there are people who have taken that writing and they have it in their possession. They have it in their possession and they're the only ones who are able to look at it. And even if I was able to look at it, or Jesse or Johnny or anyone else, or even a scholar, or even someone who thought that they could read it, aka Zecharia Sitchin, or even some sort of scientist who is allegedly in this day and age able to read some sort of who's able to read that sort of writing. It's all speculative at that point. It truly is. And I think that a lot of this writing that came in hieroglyphics, which there are none in the pyramids, and when you do find it, I don't know where you find it, and if I had Brian on, I know he would tell me. you could look at it and think, oh, I mean, you could make a guesstimate. You could make some sort of guesstimate. And the Rosetta Stone, they say they have that, and that's how they're able to decipher some of this stuff. How do you believe that? I guess what I'm trying to say is that the writings that these people have left us, we have no idea what the fuck it is. We have no idea in any way, shape, or form what the fuck they were trying to say. 0, 0, 0. We don't know shit. We know absolutely nothing. Alls we know is what we're told. And alls we know is what we can come up with. And what I've came up with is I think we were extremely close in that time, in that date of age, is to finding out who God was. And that's why he wiped that civilization out. You can go with Randall Carlson. And you can go with his theory. In his theory, he brings science in. He brings science in and he brings math in. And he states that he puts this map out. It's like a 150,000 year map. And he puts this map out and he guesses of all these major catastrophes. Motherfucker, you don't know shit about catastrophes. You don't know nothing. There's no way you can map out any catastrophe that's happened on this earth except for the time that you were born on this earth and you were of the age of 20 years old or older when you even knew what a catastrophe was. And then you bring out data. Dude, you have no idea. No one knows shit, man. No one knows a fucking damn thing. We're all guessing, man. We're all guessing. And that's the most frustrating part with me, is the fact that we're all guessing. I love it. I love it. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't like it. I love listening to the fascinating stories of all these scientists that we hold so close to our hearts and say this is it. I love looking through my Facebook feed and saying that, oh, there's a new scientist who says that Pluto is actually a planet, or the humans aren't ready for life on Mars, and it's here. It's here. Life is here. Life is on Mars, and we're just not ready for it. What the fuck do you mean we're not ready for it? Dude, you're not ready for it. You wrote that article, and you're going to say that we're not ready for life on Mars? You're not even on Mars. How do we as people sit here and just soak in this information, man? We all need to relax. We need to, I don't even know what we need to do. I don't think that I have the answer. I don't know what the fuck the answer is. I have no idea in any way, shape, or form what we should do. I don't. We should continue to explore, but I don't think that we should mislead people. I think that with the technology that we have, we should truly use that to our benefit. I think that people should be in the know of what is actually going on this earth. People should be in the know. We all should know. We don't need to sit here and have a conversation about it, nor should Jesse or Johnny or I have a podcast about it. It should just be on a need. It should be a need to. It should be a need to need. We should need to know this information. You're not hiding anything, you know? And I don't know. I'm starting to get lost right now. And it's just frustrating because I see these articles and it's just, to me, it's blasphemy. To me, it's poppycock. And it's unfortunate because we spend so much money on NASA yearly, daily. It's like $6 million a day or something crazy like that. And to spend that amount of money and to have such little result makes absolutely no sense into my mind. Into my brain, when it enters my brain, it just makes me extremely frustrated. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to stop fucking around with we need to stop fucking around with taxing people for NASA. And we need to actually have some sort of affiliation or some sort of organization that holds true to who we are as people. who we are as people. We're all here together, 6 billion of us, allegedly. And we need an organization to tell us what they know and exactly what it is in the here and now. And I'm not opposed to trying to figure out what happened in the past. But we will never know what happened in the past unless we actually know how to read that writing. And no matter how many times you try and fucking fuck around with it and try and decipher what the fuck they were saying, I truly don't think we'll ever know what they were saying. And this goes back to what Johnny and I were talking about before the podcast had ended. Is if our civilization was to end right now, and I know there are so many different languages, and this would make it even more extremely hard in this instance, and we were wiped off the face of the earth, minus a few hundred or a few thousand people. And then 10,000 years later, there's a massive amount of human beings living on this earth again. And they start finding English. They start finding books. Thousands of books, man. Thousands of books. Spanish, English, German, Chinese, you name it. Whatever you could imagine, they start finding these books. But they created their own language. They have no way to decipher those languages. The languages that we know now. They have no way. And let's say we leave a Rosetta Stone. Let's say that. Let's say we do. But we don't know what their new language is. That's the funny part. We have no idea what their new language is. We have no idea. Then they start repeating the process. They start repeating the same process. That is where we're at. We have no idea what is going on in the past. We have no true recollection of anything that happened in the past. And that is where I'm at. And that is where I'll stand. I've never gotten a chance to say this, and here I am on this podcast saying it right now. Anything that has happened in the past, I'll go as far back as to probably the 1600s. 1600s. Maybe 15 or 1400, sorry. Or as far back as English, sorry. As far back as when we were able to start talking in our own language and understanding our language. Latin, Hebrew, whatever you want to call it. That's as far back as I'll go. Sorry. I'll say sorry again. I'm sorry. That's when we became an existence. That's when we became a civilization, is when we were able to have our own language. We don't know their language. We will never know their language. Dude, look at hieroglyphics and tell me you know their fucking language. Not a chance, dude. Not a chance. I've looked at the clay tablets on Google. I've never seen one in real life. I wish I would have. Or I wish I will. Not a chance. You'll never know. And nor will, if you were to write a paragraph or take a paragraph from when you were in third grade and we were wiped out of civilization, and 20,000 years later a new colony or a new fucking civilization exists because we were wiped out, they look at that paragraph that you wrote in third grade, they have no idea what the fuck you were talking about. What the fuck you were talking about. And what does any of this matter? It doesn't. But it's fun to talk about. And I'll leave you at that, man. Thank you for watching Talk Junkies. The biggest thing you can do to support our channel is fucking share this shit, man. Share the shit out of this video. This is not kid content. December 10th / January 1st, YouTube's coming out with this new shit, Kappa. This is not for kids, man. This is not for kids. And we have to say that now. Well, we don't have to say it, but we have to put it, we have to tally it or mark it as not for kids. But this is not for kids. But the biggest thing you can do is share this content, man. I truly think that what Talk Junkies is doing in the podcast that we have done, we're truly trying to inform everyone that lives on this world. And I would truly appreciate it if you shared this video, if you like this video, and you subscribe to this video. Do that. To all my junkies out there, stay fly and ring the bell.